Well, he has the move down. Hi there and welcome to a special hour-long edition of the Coors Light MSG Sports Desk. I'm Deb Kaufman. We have expanded our show to a full hour so we can bring you complete coverage of this Mark Messier story as he exits stage left from Broadway and heads west to ride off into the sunset in Vancouver. John Davidson will join us. We'll have reaction from Neil Smith and Dave Checketts, plus Colin Campbell and Adam Graves, both on the phone from their summer homes in Ontario, and we caught up with Wayne Gretzky. But life after Mark Messier began today for the New York Rangers. Ironically, Messier will finish his career with the team he cemented his legend against, Vancouver, the team the Rangers beat in '94 to finally win the Cup. He was introduced at a news conference this afternoon in Canada after agreeing to a 3-year deal worth at least $20 million. It could be worth up to 30 with incentives. It was too much to turn down.
This is not an exciting day would be certainly an understatement. The last 10 days actually have been pretty hectic, but here we are in Vancouver, and we're certainly happy about that. A lot of people are asking me about Vancouver and about what it's going to be like coming back to Canada, and it wasn't at all. I didn't have any reservations at all about moving back to Canada or playing back to Canada. And in fact, it was actually an attraction to me. Being a Canadian, being born and brought up in Edmonton, Alberta, having an opportunity to come back here and finish my career in Canada actually was one of the things that came into the decision-making process, that it would be a great opportunity to do that.
Our objective is to win the Stanley Cup. It always has been. That's a rocky road sometimes, and sometimes you get run awry. We simply here, in my opinion, have added to our base, our core of leadership, and the intangibles that Mark will bring with him to our group of players will allow us to get a little closer to our dream, our goal.
Mark is one of those players that embodies integrity, to say the least. Obviously, he's a man that has immense respect around the league by only skating on the ice and being seen in person.
I think for Vancouver, it's outstanding. We truly have one of the greatest centers to ever play our game, wearing our uniform.
There's a lot of work ahead of us, but I think the most important thing is just there's a lot of great players, a lot of great people here in the past that have done a lot of great things, and hopefully I can come in here and help out in any way that I can to bring them, bring Canada, bring Vancouver what they're really hoping for is the Stanley Cup.
The Canucks lost out on Wayne Gretzky in last summer's free agent market, but they do strike gold this time around, and Messier and Gretzky are teammates no more.
Well, I talked to Wayne a couple days ago, and you know, obviously there's a tremendous amount of disappointment for everybody involved. You know, it wasn't an easy decision on my part because of my relationship with Wayne, on and off the ice. It wasn't to do with respect. I've been treated first class by New York. They've treated me with a tremendous amount of respect. There was a certain amount of disappointment that things didn't get done in New York, but that's the way it goes. You know, that's sports. We're all men. We have to accept things and decisions people make and move on. I mean, my 6 years experience was a dream come true that not a lot of athletes have ever been able to live out. But going there and winning a Stanley Cup in '94 and having spent the years I did with the players and then the organization and the fans, it was just unbelievable, and it made the decision tough. But like I say, it's always tough to change, but the opportunity that lays ahead of me here is exciting, and like I said, I can't wait to get started.
For the Rangers' part now, they offered 2 years plus an option, but it paled in comparison money-wise to the Canucks deal. We have reaction now from Neil Smith, who says at some point they just have to stop paying for the '94 Cup and use their dollars to try and win another one, but he is disappointed.
I'm very emotional about it because I feel in my heart that Mark was a great Ranger, should still be a Ranger, and I wish he would finish his career as a Ranger. I'm very attached to him being on the team and being number 11 with the C on his shirt. Having said that, you know, he probably got a once-in-a-lifetime offer. Once-in-a-lifetime to even hear about, never mind get yourself, but once-in-a-lifetime offer from the Canucks. And I think even though his heart probably is in New York and with the Rangers, when the Rangers couldn't come up to the level that the Canucks offered, he found himself in a no decision. He had to go.
Where do you think it went wrong, the negotiation process? Do you go back a year ago? Do you go back 6 months ago? Do you go back 2 weeks ago? Or did it go wrong?
I really don't think it ever did go wrong. I think that certainly on a going forward basis in the years to come, we can't assign all our dollars to players who we know genetically have to be on the way down. And that's not saying anything negative about Mark other than we know that he can't be as good at age 37, 38, and 39 as he was at 27, 28, and 29. And so therefore we have to make some hard decisions, and unfortunately the one that we made was that we just couldn't come up to the level that Vancouver came up to.
Did you have a chance on behalf of Madison Square Garden and the Rangers to put forth your absolute final offer?
You know, we put forward an offer which we thought would be responded to. It was never really responded to. And again, I guess probably because they felt that we could never get close to the Vancouver deal, which is an astounding $20 million US for 3 years. And even with all our years taken up, our offer wasn't nearly that level.
What about the thought of people saying that it seemed as though the Garden respected Ewing more so than how the negotiation process went along with the Rangers and Mark Messier?
Well, again, you know, you've got to look at it very deeply and say, is that true? Let's look under the surface and find out. Mark on breakup day said that years weren't an issue. He was ready to go year to year. Money wasn't the issue. Really, still today, I don't know what else we could have done but listened and tried to deliver to him something that he wanted that was also would make sense to the club on a short-term and long-term basis.
Is there a loyalty issue here when you think about Mark's camp or your camp?
I don't think he's disloyal for taking a deal that any human being would take that sets you up and your family up for the rest of your life. I think that Mark did what he felt was prudent for him and his family. Having said that, I don't think we were disloyal either in the way we approach. I think that we part as friends, we part as good partners in a great 6 years.
Anything you want to say to the fans that are watching regarding, I guess it's you know, we all know that Mark Messier has become somewhat of a winner in this because obviously his bank account's going to get rather swollen. Rangers are taking some public relation hits. Here's a chance just to talk to the fans. Tell the fans, if you can, what the plans are. I'm sure you've got a game plan in place regarding the future when it's now without Mark Messier. Your feeling about your hockey club, your feeling about how to replace Mark if that's possible, and your plans to go ahead.
Well, the thing I'd first ask the fans, and I include myself as one of the fans, to tell you the truth, a fan of all the Ranger players and of the club. I mean, no one wears the blue more than I do, but to remember that it was the same guy who brought Mark here in October 6th of '91. I was the same person who signed Adam Graves as a free agent and went out on a limb to do that, and the same person who's made countless other trades along with the acquisition of Wayne Gretzky. I think I've proven to the fans where my heart is, that I'll try everything I can to put a winner on the ice for the Ranger fans. I'll continue to do that. No one hates losing more than I do, as you know, by being around me for this long. That'll never stop, and I'll always try to deliver another Stanley Cup, or many of them, into Madison Square Garden.
Garden President Dave Checketts called it a sad day in New York, but he also said today the Rangers were not given a last chance to match Vancouver's offer, and he said he thought there was a level of trust between the Garden and Messier camp that apparently didn't exist.
I was obviously shocked and disappointed because Mark has been a big part of what we've tried to do with the Rangers for the last 6 years. The last offer we made was substantial. It was 3 years. 2 of those years virtually guaranteed at big money. But obviously Vancouver came in and was willing to spend whatever it would take to get him. And even though it's a $30 million deal for 5 years, I think Vancouver was willing to go a lot more than that and would have bid whatever it took. We did not think that was the responsible thing to do.
At some point, the negotiating relationship clearly deteriorated between the two sides, and neither seems to be able to put a finger on it.
Respect is a two-way street, and we showed him a lot of respect after he brought the cup to New York, and we didn't have to, but we came to the table with a new 3-year deal and paid him $18 million and treated him with great respect, whether that was his suggestions for players that should be brought in or players that should be cut that weren't making it. Even the way the team traveled, we sought his advice and counsel on. I think we showed him the ultimate respect. I do not feel that that same regard was shown back to us when it came to this negotiation. He took the best deal he could find, and he ran with it. And he had the right to do that. He was a free agent. He had the right to take it and run. It is the end of an era. It's been a great era, the Mark Messier era. But now it is time to turn the leadership of the Rangers over to Brian Leetch and to Mike Richter, to Adam Graves, and even to Wayne Gretzky. And we have a very talented team, but I think we'll do other things before the season starts that will get people very excited about the possibilities for the Rangers in this coming season.
Here's what the Rangers will miss from Messier on the ice, at least. The 30 goals and 55 assists that he averaged in his 6 years here. And only Wayne Gretzky's been a better playoff performer. Messier ranks in the top 2 in playoff goals, assists, and points, behind only number 99 in the record books. Of course, they'll miss him as much, if not more, in the dressing room. And we'll hear from a couple of his teammates, including Wayne Gretzky, as well as Adam Graves. Plus, the coach, Coley Campbell, joins us on the telephone. But up next, you heard John Davidson with Neil Smith. He'll join us next on the Sports Desk. He weighs in with his thoughts the day from his point of view. But as we take a quick break, a look and a listen at one of many memorable Messier moments.
Driver. Quick pass, Graves to Messier. He shoots. He scores! Mark Messier, number 500, and it's a hat trick. What a night for Mark Messier! And the Habs are starting to run the ice. The Ranger players know exactly what it means. The bench is standing. Oh, this beautiful little girl is.
JD is with us now, and we have plenty to talk about. Let's start with your reaction when you found out that he was going.
Well, I think I found out last night when the phone started ringing at my home, Deb, and there was a lot of calls from various people throughout both countries, Canada and the United States, and a lot of them were asking questions and had I heard anything, and generally when there's a lot of smoke like that, it means something's happening, and to me it's intriguing. I think it's very interesting that Mark's decided to take a different route, to leave the Rangers. It's understandable when you think of the contract that he had put in front of him. I can understand him fully in leaving because of that. This isn't just about dollars. This is about a lot of dollars. I mean, this is a huge deal, and he basically had to take it. I also find it interesting for the Rangers in the fact that this has now happened, and they have to find a way to move forward. And I think they, as an organization, have a plan in place that will kick in now, the in case of Mark leaving plan. And that has to kick in, and they have to deal with it, as do the fans, as do the coaches, as do we who broadcast Ranger games. I find it a very intriguing, interesting day.
During the year, throughout the spring, Mark talked a lot about, I'm probably going to come back with the Rangers. It's not going to be a big deal. Money's not an issue. I'll probably take a one-year deal. We've been together so long. How did we get from there to here, to him fielding 6 or 7 offers, $20 million, the Islanders getting involved, the Rangers happy to take a step back and starting over? How did we get from there to here?
You know, it's an interesting question. That may be the most intriguing question of them all right now. Islanders expressed interest, no doubt, but I don't know how serious they were. I think it was smart on their behalf to make some noise. Mike Milbury did that as their general manager, and it was smart. It told the Islander fans that they were interested in doing something, and that is to go after a high-profile player such as Mark Messier. Detroit, I can tell you that was real. Washington was very real, and Vancouver, pardon me, ended up being the #1 choice for Mark. How it got there, I don't know. Is it a series of miscommunication where the feelings got hurt? Perhaps. But I think when you look at this whole scenario and you try and figure out what happened, only Mark and his camp know, only the Rangers and their camp know. They've treated each other today with a great deal of respect now that they parted. And I hope it goes respectfully from now on. Again, I may be along the line here in weeks to come. We can figure this whole thing out, but I really don't know. I know that the Rangers, quite frankly, feel that Mark will not be an impact player for the length of what this contract would be at those dollars. Mr. Checketts, the president, and Neil Smith, the man who runs the Rangers, they both said that today. So it tells you something there. And they had to make a fiscal decision, which they have the right to do and did. They weren't going to go as high as Vancouver did with those gigantic numbers. Vancouver, on the other hand, it's a whole different set of circumstances to have there. They have a building that they have to deal with. They have a corporate world they have to deal with. They have the All-Star game coming there. They've got new jerseys. They didn't make the playoffs last year. And Mark can fulfill some of those needs.
I guess I'm a little surprised as far as Mark is concerned that he would have the energy really at this age to start over. Now he's going to have to fulfill a lot of responsibilities and be around on a daily basis and be a goodwill ambassador now for that franchise. He's done that once before when he came to New York and started over. I guess I'm a little surprised that he wants to go through it all again.
I don't think he did originally, but when the dollars, through negotiation, anytime you look at a 3-year deal for $20 million U.S. playing in a Canadian city, you look at the history of what their franchise has going for them regarding ownership, the McCaw group. You think about Mark being a single person. He doesn't have a family to move around. I don't think he had any choice when it got to this point. I mean, I don't think any of us watching, or you and me sitting here, if that's sitting in front of us and we happen to be a free agent, you don't just go because you change jobs, but this one here is sitting there, and it's like buying that lotto and hitting it for $20 or $30 million. This is a $20 million deal for a contract for 3 years, 2 years team option for another $10 million total, so that's $30 million possible dollars sitting right in front of them, $20 million of them guaranteed. Everybody, including the Rangers organization, say, hey, you can't turn that down.
All right, let's talk about where the Rangers go from here. Now, right now, today, a lot of the fans are upset, and I'm sure that Dave Checketts and Neil Smith knew that they were going to take some heat for today and for a week, but that in the end, the fans will come around and realize that he's probably not a $20 million player for 3 years, and who can they get maybe to fill his place, and maybe the team will be better in a couple years.
First of all, if I can say this, there's a lot of people upset. I mean, I cover the Rangers daily. I'm upset. I'm a Mark Messier fan. I can tell you that Neil Smith and Dave Checketts, who run the Garden and the Rangers, they're upset. Nobody wanted to see this, but the reality of it is it did happen, and it happened for a great deal of money. The Rangers now, we've been told that the $6 million that Mark may have made this season if he would have stayed is available to the Rangers to use to upgrade their team. They do have a #1 center spot that is vacated. Wayne Gretzky is a 1A centerman, so he can assume a large portion of that. Adam Graves or Alexei Kovalov, they could move to center ice and play that position. However, that opens up spots on the wings then if that does happen. Now, I know that Igor Larionov, a fine centerman playing in Detroit, is a free agent, and if the Rangers did lure him to New York, it would not cost you anything other than the contract itself. There's Group 2 people out there like Mike Modano in Dallas, Joe Sakic in Colorado, but if you offer them a certain amount of money and they accept it, hypothetically, if you offer Joe Sakic a 5-year deal for a total of $30 million, he might say, yeah, I'd like to do that and sign an offer for him. Then Colorado can match. They have the right to do that. Now, if Colorado says, oh, it's too much money, let him go, the Rangers get Sakic and that contract, but they have to also compensate with draft choices or talented players back to Colorado. So that's a tough deal to try to put together at this time of the year. It's a very tough deal to try and do. So there's a game plan in place. Neil Smith doesn't want to let the public know what it is because you don't let your opponents and people throughout the league know. But it's a very difficult day, I think, in Rangerland, but it's something that you go forward with.
All right, thanks, John.
Oh, my pleasure, Deb.
It still kind of hasn't sunk in yet, has it?
No.
Take a couple weeks.
It's going to be, it's like a hangover. Right? There's going to be a hangover effect here with this whole scenario. But there's other great players on the Rangers. There's Leach and there's Richter and there's Kovalov, and these people have their own leadership skills, Adam Graves, and the team's got to go forward. I don't think any one player, as great as Mark Messier has been, and the folks out there should thank Mark for what he did here. He really set a base for the Rangers. He won a championship for them with the rest of the players and coaching staff and front office management. But it's time to go forward. It's over. You go forward.
Even the worst hangovers go away.
Yeah.
All right, our thanks to John. And I guess the Rangers' work is just beginning. They have a lot of work ahead of them. We'll take a quick break and be back with more on the Sports Desk right after this. Our Mark Messier coverage continues here on the Sports Desk, and joining us now from his home in Ontario is the head coach of the New York Rangers, Coley Campbell. And Coach, I guess for you today, do you take a couple of minutes to reflect on Mark Messier and the time you spent with him and what he's meant to the organization, and then is it time to move on?
I don't think it's I take this particular day or moment to reflect upon Mark Messier's decision, or ultimate move to Vancouver. It's been a process, and we've had to wrestle with the fact that he may move on for a while now. And Mark I played in Edmonton 1 year with Mark, his first year, and we've gone through some good times and tough times over the last 6 years in New York, and I've learned a lot from Mark, and Mark brought a lot to our organization in New York, and he helped me a lot as a coach. And I think Mark has touched a lot of people's lives since he's come to New York, and it's going to be tough to say goodbye to Mark, but those things happen in sports, the goodbyes often, and they're not easy, and I find as a coach they're probably the toughest thing to deal with.
Well, it sounds like you've been preparing for this perhaps for a while. When you said goodbye to Mark in June, did you have any indication that this might happen, that it might come to this?
Well, Deb, I don't know if people want to make a lot more out of this than it really is, or make stories out of stories, and the inevitable always happens with great athletes, with any athletes, with all of us. We get older, and Mark was a free agent, and it's something that's happening in sports now, and we've lost free agents before, and we've signed free agents, and I said at the end of the season to our players after the last game in Philadelphia that thank you, among other things. It's been a great run. We all worked hard. We all committed ourselves, and injury struck us down before our time was due. But it was a good playoff run, and unfortunately now, the brutal part about any sports takes place, and that's the business aspect of it. And we may not all, and we probably won't all be back in this room together, or any room next year together. That's the way sports goes today, and little did we know Mark would be one of those players, but it happens, and we have to accept it and move on, and it's not easy to accept, and it's obviously not easy to accept for the fans of New York, for the people that deal with Mark day in and day out, and for Dave Checketts and Neil Smith and myself, for that fact. I know they're going through a hard time as anyone, and Neil Smith was the individual that brought Mark here. He's the one that engineered the deal and decided to bring him here, and did what he could, and he's taken more flack and grief than anyone, and he's been torn by this whole issue. But Neil does the best thing for the New York Rangers, and always has.
So obviously it was a tough call, and perhaps the fans today and this week are going to be against the move, but do you sense that they'll come around, and do you think the Rangers can be a better team now if you get younger at that center position, and you do something different now if you move it in a different direction than Mark Messier?
Well, I don't think it's becoming a better team than we were. Mark Messier makes you a pretty good hockey team, everything he brings to the game on and off the ice. We want to continually be a good team and strive for the Stanley Cup, and in doing so, I think we have to make some moves now, and Neil has always had plans, and always does have plans in mind if things happen. Things don't go the way you always want them to go in anything, and Neil has plans in place for these things, and unfortunately, if this had happened, Neil and I have talked about it, because there's things that you just can't do, and this is a great move for Mark financially, and we can say those kinds of things in the summer, because that's what summers are for. For me and for the rest of us, it's a tough thing, and I'm sure for Mark was very emotionally and passionately attached to the players, the fans, the workers, everyone at MSG and in New York, and it's tough for him, but we can go on from here, and we have to go on from here, and the one thing that will always be up front and center with fans is if the players on the ice are giving it an effort and working hard, number one. And number two, we have to have the talent. You have to have the talent in New York. You can't get by with a competitive team. You have to put a team on the ice that has the opportunity to win the Stanley Cup. And that's why it's great for players to come to New York, because Neil Smith and the ownership at MSG has given the team the opportunity to go for it every year through trades and through the budget.
All right, thanks, Colleen. And we can hear the wheels spinning all the way from Ontario. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Well, thanks very much.
All right, we'll have more on Mark Messier heading out west. Our thanks to the coach, Coley Campbell. More on him heading way out west to Vancouver as we continue on the sports desk right after this.
A lot of decisions always, and you know, since I've been here, you know, you just got to be patient and wait your turn. And but again, I don't see any obstacles coming to me between me and the Garden, and looking forward to some time off, getting back at it, and coming back and trying again next year.
Well, that was an optimistic Mark Messier 2 months ago, but he may have underestimated how he would really feel when Patrick was rewarded at 12:01 a.m. on July 1st with his deal. We may never know if that is what happened. But if there's one thing we may have overestimated, it's the desire of Messier and Gretzky wanting to play together. Wayne did turn down more money from Phoenix as well as from Vancouver last summer to play here, but Messier felt comfortable leaving his longtime teammate behind with 1 year left to go on his deal in New York. Here's Wayne Gretzky's reaction when he heard today's news.
We're a little surprised and obviously a little bit shocked right now. He was a big part of my life, and he's a big part of New York Ranger players and New York Ranger fans' lives. And, you know, he has great memories in that city. You know, people remember him as a guy who came in and did a lot of good things. So you don't replace a guy like Mark Messier, but, you know, we hope for Mark that he's happy, he's a good person. At the end of the day, I hope things work out for him. And somehow, some way, we hope things work out for the Rangers.
In New York, Adam Graves was his closest friend and longtime line mate, and the relationship between Graves and Messier brought the franchise much success. JD talked to Adam Graves by telephone earlier today.
Especially myself, it hasn't really sunk in yet. As everyone well knows, the type of respect and admiration I have for Mark, and I know I've been very fortunate and benefited from playing with him on the same line for the last 6 years, and then had the fortunate opportunity to be his teammate for the last 8. So I don't think it's really sunk in for myself, and I haven't really grasped it myself that I'm not going to be playing with him, and it's something that we're all going to collectively have to make sure we're ready to play, and make sure we're ready to try and fill the huge void that his leadership and his character and the type of player he is going to leave. But and I think everyone wishes Mark the best, because he deserves the best. He's a tremendous man.
Did you have a chance, Adam, to talk to him since Mark made the decision to sign with Vancouver?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I was, you know, in a time like this when, you know, you're talking about a huge career and a huge life decision for him to move to Vancouver and play with the Canucks, and he's such a gentleman. You know, the first thing he thinks of is to call his teammates and call his good friends and let them know of his decision, so you don't hear it secondhand. And I was fortunate enough to talk to him earlier today, and you know, it was more of a positive thing where everyone we just talked. You know, it was a quick call, but it was just to talk about the great times that we've had and the great run that we've had together over the last 7-8 years. And I think it was more a chance for me to say thanks for everything he's done for me, not only personally but professionally as a hockey player. He's had a huge influence on me, and I've been, as I said earlier, very, 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 very fortunate to have the opportunity to play with him and play in New York with him. And it's unfortunate that this chapter of as far as playing with Mark in New York is over, although I haven't really grasped it yet.
Center ice, it may be a position that you might be playing a lot of as opposed to left wing. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think first of all at center ice, I don't think there'll be a huge lineup as far as wingers are concerned that will want to play with me, not unless they have nice ankle guards and they can handle those passes going off the sides of their skates. But as far as you know, guys returning in that, you know, you've been around, JD. You know that not one guy is going to go and say, "Geez, I'm going to be like Mark," or "I'm going to do this," or "I'm going to do that." But I think the big thing is he led through his heart. He didn't sit down at the beginning of the season and write everything down on a piece of paper and say, in game 24, I'm going to stand up and say this, and I'm not going to. In most cases, he didn't even have to say anything. He went out and showed by example.
Thanks, JD. And maybe it's a little early to start thinking about it, but Messier definitely considered going into the Hall of Fame as a Ranger, even though he won 5 cups in Edmonton. Now, that doesn't seem so likely. And is it too early to start thinking about the first Rangers-Canucks meeting of the year? The Rangers will face their old captain in a preseason game at the end of September and circle this date. His first trip back to the Garden will be November 25th. Other news of the day after this.